Hey everyone, this is Ken Klippenstein with TYT Investigates. I'm going to be talking to you today about a new study out from a UC Berkeley economist which found that the wealth of the Fortune 400, the 400 richest people according to the Forbes publication, has actually doubled in the last 10 years, which I thought was an astonishing number because they were already doing extremely well. And to have, their standing economically more than double, in fact, was something that, literally made my jaw drop because when we're talking about the Fortune 400, we're talking about people with hundreds of billions of dollars, like Jeff Bezos or, Bill Gates. So for them to have their wealth more than double, that's an extraordinary number. I mean, the amount of money that these folks have is the equivalent of the GDP of small countries. So I'm going to compare that for a sense of scale. I'm going to compare that with, how ordinary folks have been doing, so that we can get, a fair sense of what this means for the society. So let me start off by saying this was brought to my attention by a tweet from Senator Bernie Sanders. I'm going to read you the tweet right now. He says, the top 0.0025% saw their wealth double in the last decade and their tax rate fall. We have the money to provide basic necessities to our people. What we need is the courage to take on the corporate elite. And so, I looked up this figure because I like to, fact check things. And what I found was that he was referencing a study done by a UC Berkeley economist by the name of Gabriel Zuckman. And his study found that the Fortune 400, the 400 richest people, according to Forbes, their income or their wealth doubled from 1.27 trillion to nearly 3 trillion this year. In fact, it almost doubled, and that was since 2009. So from the time of the crash to now, their wealth has more than doubled. And that is extraordinary. Because again, when you look at the folks that are on the Fortune 400, these are people that were already unimaginably wealthy. We're talking money that you're not going to have time to spend. So for that to more than double, it's just incredible. So I like to get, try to get a fair assessment of things. So I compared that with how Americans have been doing since the crash. And so what I found was not heartening. There was a study referenced by U.S. U.S. What is it? U.S. News and World Report, which found that 3 in 10 Americans haven't recovered from the recession, and this is consistent with the findings of other studies. I saw another one that said about half of America looked at counties' economic growth, found that half of America hadn't recovered from the Great Recession. So the figures vary according to how you measure it, but by and large, it seems like a sizable portion of the United States has never recovered from the Great Recession. And recall, the study I just mentioned showed that the Fortune 400 wealth has more than doubled. I would call that a recovery. So the question is, why are ordinary Americans 3 in 10? That's not insignificant. I mean, that's not even. That's getting into the middle class. That's not just poor folks. Why are they doing poorly and the wealthier doing extraordinarily well? I feel like it might have something to do with it, with the two. I mean, if one is doing extremely well and the other group is doing poorly, are the wealthy cutting into the, recovery for ordinary folks? I don't think that's unreasonable to say. So if you look at this study, what it found is that, let's see, if you actually poll Americans too, about half of them say that the economy has yet to recover from the Great Recession. And I think that's true. Because, wealth takes a long time to build up. It's not enough to just get back to where you were. You have to make up for the ground that you lost as well. And so this is largely based on government data, including, I think it is, it's a county financial survey for the poll. And then, wage reports from Pew Charitable Trust. So these are credible organizations. But let me get back to the Fortune 400 comment. Or the study. So when you see a growth of more than twice what these extraordinary wealthy individuals have, you would think, oh, okay, well, maybe that could be more revenue for, where the arguments for letting the wealthy keep their money. Oh, that's more revenue for society. But what the study found was that at the same time that the Fortune 400's wealth more than doubled, the tax rate for them dropped. That's extraordinary because that's the whole argument for allowing this wealth to be amassed is, oh, it's better for revenue. And it's like, well, if you've more than doubled in 10 years, is it so crazy to say that maybe, we should increase what they're paying, especially when, as I said a moment ago, so many Americans have not recovered. So I think that we should all keep that in mind when people like Bill Gates, you recall, he threw a tantrum when he said, People are saying they want to take all my money, and I'm thinking, if they want to take, I don't remember exactly what the figure said, but he basically said that he'll have nothing left if people come through with the tax rates that they're proposing, and that's not true at all. Even Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, the ones with the toughest wealth taxes, these are still going to leave them with billions and billions and billions of dollars. The only difference, I mean, if you look at someone like Bill Gates, he loves to talk about how much he's given to charity and how much he's given in taxes and everything. His wealth has still grown. So even with all of his taxes and all the charity, it hasn't succeeded in shrinking or even holding steady. His wealth, it continues to proliferate, because that's the advantage that these extraordinarily wealthy people have, is the money just it almost seems like each dollar is easier to get than the previous one, which you would think is not a system you want. You want it to be easiest for the folks at the bottom, I would think, to get ahead, and rather than the people that already have everything that they need. But that it was in a study that I'm glad that Senator Sanders brought to my attention, and I tried to bring to everyone else's, because I think that it illustrates not just the problem we have, but also a solution. Because when you have that much wealth, that can provide funding for a lot of these programs that we're constantly told we don't have money for. Oh, it would be great to have healthcare for kids. It'd be great to have free lunches for children who, perhaps are suffer from food insecurity, as many do. Studies find that money is there. They can't just say, "Oh, well, how are we supposed to raise the money?" They would say, "Oh, Americans don't like taxes." Well, you could target taxes at specific narrow income bracket. It's not like there's one tax for everybody. I mean, if someone has $200 billion, I would hope that we can just, you know, have the amount of taxes that people pay reflect how well they're doing. I mean, it's not one tax across the board. Everyone pays, 20%.